When I grow up, I want to work for a woke company, like super woke.
When I grow up,
I want to be hired based on what I look like.
Rather than my skills.
I want to be judged
By my political beliefs.
I want to get promoted.
based on my chromosomes. When I grow up,
I want to be offended
By my coworkers.
and walk around the office.
On eggshells.
and have my words policed.
By HR. Words like
Grandfather.
Peanut gallery. Long time no see.
no can do.
When I grow up,
I want to be obsessed with emotional safety
And do workplace sensitivity training.
all day long. When I grow up, I want to climb the corporate ladder.
just by following the crowd.
I want to be a conformist.
I want to weaponize my pronouns. What are pronouns?
It's time to grow up and get back to work. Introducing the #1 woke-free job board in America, redballoon.work.
Oh no, it's happening. It's
happening? This is how we're
it's
gonna
happening.
intro the show?
Yep.
Is it?
Wake up to another headline, drama unfolding in the light.
What are we listening to?
ERLC's in turmoil, can't we get it right? Bray was out, then he's back in the fight. Kevin Smith, he had to go.
Oh, what?
Oh,
Resigned his post, can't handle the show. Where's our stability?
Where's our stability?
None without Christ, baby.
In this crazy world we see,
Put your hands up. Put your hands up.
everything's a mystery.
Not
Everything's a
really.
mystery.
Where's our stability?
There's a second verse.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it right
I
now.
know.
Kimberly's gone, couldn't take the heat. The Secret Service is on the beat.
Secret Service.
Trump's assassination, so much defeat. Biden's health, is he dead?
We don't know.
Whispers reign,
Is he
fears
dead?
spread. Failures everywhere.
Failures everywhere.
We lose our head. Where's our stability?
We don't know people. We don't know people.
In this crazy world we see.
You better have Christ. Kurt Franklin up in here. Not really. Not really.
Where's our stability?
Only in
those
Christ.
shackles
but
off your feet.
There's a bridge.
Oh, no.
We need some peace, we need some calm in a world that's lost its charm. Searching for a steady ground in the chaos we want to be found. Where's our stability?
Welcome to CrossPolitic. I feel like I'm radio DJ right now.
In this crazy world.
When we play all the crazy hits right now in the world, we playing all the crazy hits.
all the cray AI hits.
Did the first verse mention the ERLC?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
I thought I heard
Oh, yeah, yeah.
ERLC.
You know,
So how did the AI get that? Did we just ask it to do it? or
well,
what?
like Joe Biden, we have producers too.
And we fed it text.
in the same way that Joe Biden can automate his voice, we can automate songs. So there's that. And we have producers.
That's a great opening. Hey, y'all. We're live on CrossPolitic because we want to discuss the ERLC debacle, the last
ERLC
24 hours.
It's on a sloped roof.
Yep. And apparently the same testimony that you saw with the Secret Service director yesterday
Cheetle.
is the same kind of testimony we're getting right now about
Maybe so.
what just happened about
Maybe
the
so.
ERLC.
This is insane.
Pastor
It's a lot.
Toby Chalk Knocks, I'm the Waterboy. We have Pastor Tom Ascol coming on the show, and we also have Megan Basham coming on here in about 20 minutes.
Okay.
This is
and she'll be
Pastor
coming in,
Ascol
so-
twice in 1 month.
Oh,
I know.
Wow.
I missed him last time.
You weren't here when we were on?
No, this is the first time I talked to
that's
Pastor Tom in a while.
we did the live show about the assassination.
Trump's assassin-
You
yes.
weren't able to make it.
I
That's
was
right.
out
Okay.
of town. Is your smartphone a tool in the service of Christ? Or is it a minefield of distractions and temptations? With soul-killing seductions just a few taps away, our families and churches must embrace biblical accountability on our digital devices. Accountable to you, that's the word accountable, the number 2, the word you, makes transparency easy on all your family's devices by sharing app usage and detailed browsing history, including incognito mode with your spouse, parent, or chosen accountability partner. Accountable to you helps your family to proactively guard against temptation so you can live with integrity for God's glory. So learn more today. Try it out for free at accountable to you, accountable, the number 2, the word you.com/FLF. And now More than ever, it's important to support companies and organizations that share our values. Our votes are not enough. Patriot Mobile not only shares our beliefs, but does something about it. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless carrier, and they donate a portion of every dollar to organizations that fight for causes you believe in. Switch to Patriot Mobile today. Go to patriotmobile.com/crosspolitic. That's patriotmobile.com/crosspolitic.
Support them. They support us. They're great. I love their, I say this every time we plug them. I love their US-based customer service. I'm deaf in one ear. I have a hard time understanding people. And when I talk to Americans, it's super helpful.
We know. Yeah. So I don't even know when this happened. Is there a timestamp on this? But I guess
Secret Service wouldn't know.
I guess it was Sunday. I have no.
There's no details. There's timestamps, but there's no details.
Following Biden's announcement that he was stepping down and not running for re-election, so I guess this would have been Sunday at some point. I don't know. ERLC director, CEO, czar, I don't know. Brent Leatherwood tweets out, "This day should come as no surprise. Still, it is a historic moment, and this decision by President Biden is the right decision for our nation." Following this tweet, there was some pushback. There was some chatter on the interwebs, and then I don't know, like a few hours later. I mean, how long later was it? Maybe the next day.
You know what strikes me about this tweet is that he's saying it after Biden steps down, but we all have known Biden should have stepped down, years ago, and we already knew he had some sort of dementia. And was not acting right a long time ago, but he took the moment to tweet about it now. It's just It's just weird. It's like, why would you say something when you should have said something a year ago?
Right. But also just sort of a seemingly relatively real friendly to the Democratic Party, and the ERLC, this organization of the Southern Baptist Convention. Right. It seems kind of partisan. And so there's a bunch of pushback, and I don't know, hours later, the next day, there's an announcement that he's been fired.
This is from the executive committee.
The executive committee of the board of trustees for the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, that's the ERLC of the SBC, issued the statement. In accordance with our bylaws, the executive committee has removed Brent Leatherwood as president. Further details as well as plans for the transition will be provided at our September board meeting. Until then, the executive committee of the board of trustees will assume directional responsibility for carrying out the ministry assignments for the ERLC. Okay, then you have sort of a response to this.
By the way, I just gotta say that's impressive.
What's that?
That they did this. I thought it was impressive.
Yes.
So it's like, whoa,
he's fired. Then you've got an outcry from the other side. You've got Russell Moore and others calling this shameful and so forth. And so we go to bed last night with that, and then apparently a bunch of ballots showed up in the middle of the night.
And
seen this before. They started counting ballots.
Delegates showed up.
Something. And early this morning, we wake up to, as members of the ERLC's executive committee, we formally retract the press release, which was sent yesterday. There was not an authorized meeting, vote, or action taken by the executive committee. Kevin Smith has resigned as chair of the executive committee. Brent Leatherwood remains the president of the ERLC and has our support moving forward. My immediately thought was the credits that run at the end of Monty Python in the Search of the Holy Grail, and you have these things. There's somebody running the credits, and they've been sacked, and then we sacked the people that sacked the people that sacked. And anyway, feels like we're
also like the Democratic convention too.
Yeah,
that's coming up. So right now Kamala has all the delegates, and then who knows, Hillary could have them by the time August will come.
Anyways, so they say here that it was not an authorized meeting, vote, action. He remains the president of the ERLC and has our support moving forward. And then shortly after, Kevin Smith gives this statement: "It's been my honor to serve, etc. After multiple conversations with executive committee members of the ERLC, I was convinced in my mind that we had a consensus to remove Brent Leatherwood as the president of the ERLC. It is a delicate matter in an effort to deal with it expeditiously. I acted in good faith, but without a formal vote of the executive committee. This was an error on my part, and I accept full responsibility. At this time, the executive committee does not wish to move forward with my course of action. Therefore, I'm resigning as the chairman of the ERLC Board of Trustees as a trustee," etc. Love the SBC, love our ERLC.
But do they love you? I'm sorry.
He's going to focus on ministry in his neighborhood church going forward. We're really grateful to have with us Pastor Tom Ascol. Of course, Pastor Tom, you were at the SBC only, a month ago, recently.
June.
And you actually made a motion to end the ERLC. And do we have a video of that?
Yeah, it's right here.
Okay, you gonna play that clip?
It's time for us to call the ERLC to become accountable to the churches who pay for it. Bylaw 25 wisely does not allow for the discontinuation of any entity with just one vote. It takes 2 positive votes for 2 successive years. Adopting this motion today will not eliminate the ERLC today, but it will send a clear message that the churches of the SBC are deeply concerned about their mission drift. We're often told by our leaders that the local church is the headquarters of the SBC. It's time that the ERLC hears from headquarters. A positive vote will give them 1 full year to make a course correction. Please support this vote.
So, Pastor Tom, thanks for coming back on CrossPolitic. But talk to us about why you made this motion, and then, of course, and maybe bring some people up to speed that might not have been following what the ERLC has been doing, politics in the SBC, et cetera.
Yeah, well, the ERLC has had some rough years in the last 5, 6, 7 years or so. A couple of examples I cited when I spoke to my motion was a few years ago, they put together a very professional video claiming that animal rights are human rights, and that pro-life, if you're going to be a pro-life person, you're going to have to support animal rights because animals get mistreated just like unborn babies in the womb do. And I just raised a stink about that. I mean, it wasn't hard to do. And they did pull it down. They said, oh, sorry, this should never have been released. But they never gave an explanation. Why was it produced? Why did they do that? Last year, Brent Leatherwood he was involved in the shooting with the transgendered graduate from the Covenant Christian School there in Nashville, came back and shot up the school, killed people. And Brent's kids go there, at least one of his kids, maybe 2. And the parents got together and worked to silence the release of the manifesto that murderer produced and worked hard. I mean, and pulled a lot of political strings and legal strings to do that. It was ridiculous. And then he came out advocating for gun control in the wake of it, thinking that this is the problem and this will be the solution. The most egregious recent thing, however, in my mind, was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe, the SBC passed the strongest resolution we've ever passed about abortion, arguing for equal protection under the law for unborn children. Well, later that year, the House of Representatives in Louisiana got a bill that was brought out of committee, and it had strong support that could have been passed as the first bill in a state legislature in the United States that would grant equal protection under the law to unborn children. And days before that vote, there were 70 plus pro-life organizations that issued an open letter to state legislators, particularly saying, don't you dare do this. We will not stand for anything that would criminalize women who go and have their babies aborted. And Brent Leatherwood put his name on that open letter in direct violation of the resolution that the Southern Baptist Convention had passed. So I've been calling for Brent's resignation for years. In fact, I'm make no bones about it. I told him long before that I didn't think he should have been in this spot, and I thought he should have resigned. And I've before also tried to get the ERLC defunded, and that didn't work. But what happened this last month, it was not planned. I didn't go to Indianapolis where the convention was held with an idea that I was going to make a motion to defund or to abolish the ERLC. But Megan Basham, who you're having on the show as well, has spoken at a luncheon event that Founders helped to host. And I think we had like 600 or so people came to that luncheon. She spoke very eloquently from her book that is coming out next week on Shepherds for Sale. And I was just stirred up again. I read the manuscript weeks, maybe months ago now. It's an excellent book. It's an expose. She does her research. She brings her receipts. She connects the dots very clearly to show how deep pockets and leftist organizations have been intent and somewhat successful in steering the Southern Baptist Convention toward left political, social, cultural agendas.
Wow.
And so just hearing her talk about it again, I'm walking back from the lunch to the convention meeting room and walk in on the session where they're accepting new motions. So I got in line. I said, well, I'm going to make a motion that we abolish the ERLC. The bylaws allow for that. And we ran out of time. There was 2 minutes extended to that business session. And I got in right under the wire and made the motion and was able to speak to it the next day because it would have been a good thing to do. But it takes 2 years, as I said, for this to be passed in successive conventions for an entity to be abolished. And so had we voted to abolish it this year, it would have given the ERLC 1 year. They would have been on notice that the Southern Baptist Convention is not pleased with you. We want you to get back on your right mission and get off the drift that you've been on. It didn't pass, but we got about 40% of the vote.
Wow.
I mean, with no build-up, no promotion, just happened.
Yeah.
And I would think that anybody who was leading that organization would take that as a wake-up call and say, wait a minute, we need to re-examine some things. But I've been told at the next trustee meeting that Brent reported, all is well with the ERLC. So that's kind of the backstory of this. And it's just a sad thing. The ERLC has been in the past, could be in the future, a force for great good in the United States. But in the hands of the current leadership, it is not that at all. And in fact, it actually works contrary to what Southern Baptist churches stand for.
So, Tom, it seems like there's... we constantly talk about this on our show about just it's hard not to believe that there's maybe some sort of conspiracy at play here or something a little deeper going on than meets the eye.
Yeah.
And it seems like that is very much something that's happening here where you have the executive committee apparently released a joint statement firing Brent Leatherwood, right? And then you have the reversal of that whole thing happen in less than 24 hours.
That's a really good point, though, Gabe. Hold on. That's a good point. So let's just say that Kevin Smith operated
or he lied either
by
Kevin,
himself,
or he misrepresented and misstated.
They all had to at least agree on to release a statement, though, right? That's a good. I don't know.
I would think
Pastor
so.
Tom, you'd have to answer that one.
What do you think? What backroom ball you think is going on there?
Well, Kevin's not a bad guy. And I think he began to read the tea leaves and saw, hey, man, convention's not pleased with Brent. Brent's made some missteps. Maybe he's not been correctable. I don't know. But Kevin thought he had the approval and the consensus of the other members of the executive committee of the board of trustees of the ERLC. Kevin is the chairman. And so he goes to Brent to talk to him, believing that he has full support of the rest of the executive committee. The bylaws of the ERLC say that the executive committee have the right to hire and fire, or to fire their executives. And so he told Brent, the executive committee is firing you. And immediately, of course, Russell Moore and the New York Times and other leftist media outlets begin to decry this and talk about, this is a play of MAGA and look what's happening. This is horrible, mistreating this man. And the other members of the executive committee of the trustees of the ERLC, and I don't know this for a fact. I've been told this, and it certainly seems to accord with what I do know as fact. They got cold feet, squeamish, and said, maybe we shouldn't have done it this way. Hey, we didn't really vote. And so they decided that they would rather let Kevin Smith be left hanging out to dry than Brent Leatherwood. And so they've effectively been steered. They have been steered. It's been emotional sabotage. We ought to have Joe Rigney's book cover just blaring all across the landscape of the Southern Baptist Convention right now.
So they distance themselves from a black man. That's amazing.
That's right. And Russell Moore said that sometimes the Venn diagram of evil and stupid is a complete circle, which in effect he's calling Kevin Smith evil and stupid,
right.
Which, it's just there's so many things wrong with this. It's hard to know where to start and stop.
So Megan, you
we got Megan
talking about. She's here.
What's up, Megan?
Megan.
Megan, you've been talking about the CNN
stand with her.
connections. You stand with
I
Megan?
stand with her.
Wherever she's standing, I'm standing.
I'm staying with her. Megan, I'm staying with you. All right.
Thank you.
Believe all Megan Basham.
Believe all Megan. That's funny.
That's great.
That's funny. So you made the connection. You've been talking to people who work for the ERLC, and they've been feeding you kind of their side of the story in all this. What's going on there?
Yeah. So, at this point, I don't have confirmation. I just have what I'm being told. And a couple of members have told me that they believe that the outrage that was ginned up last night on social media from the New York Times, CNN, The Atlantic. I haven't gone through and finished counting, but it looked like at least a dozen very large media figures were boosting Russell Moore's outrage, which is interesting because you do have to very much wonder what the editorial board of the New York Times knows of Brent Leatherwood. What do these DEI, these self-pronounced DEI ambassadors who work for CNN know of Brent Leatherwood? We don't know, but we know they know Russell Moore. And so they were all boosting his outrage over Leatherwood's firing. And then we know that the consensus that Kevin Smith believed he had evaporated. And I have been told that they went, quote unquote, squishy because of that outrage.
Wow.
So I haven't confirmed it. I can't say with certainty that that's what happened, but I do have sources telling me that within the organization. And I think it's unfortunate maybe that Kevin Smith did not follow all careful protocol. Now, my understanding is that they did not have to do this to remove Brent Leatherwood, and he felt that he did have that consensus. But given something like this, maybe it would have been good to go through all the formal processes.
Why is it that Leatherwood is so important to the ERLC at this point that they have to pull this kind of maneuver?
Well, Tom just went through a number of the positions that Leatherwood has taken that do not accord with the majority view of the Southern Baptist Convention. And one, I definitely don't think you mentioned, so I want to add. And the other one, I'm not sure. Did we talk about the transgender manifesto?
What? Huh?
Yeah, just mentioned it. The shooter at the Covenant School.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
The Leatherwood using ERLC resources to help suppress that manifesto. And then the other one was the ERLC signing on to, and because I'm joining late and coming from another interview, I'm not super prepared, but there was a piece of proposed legislation that would have made it so that anti-Semitism was defined in a particular way that was very open and in flux and could even potentially at some point redefine particular scriptural teaching as being anti-Semitic. And it was such a violation of the principle of free speech that Ben Shapiro at the Daily Wire, fairly well known for being a serious Jew, Yoram Hazony of the Edmund Burke Foundation, also fairly well known for being a serious Jew, they themselves opposed this bill. And I think Al Mohler also opposed it, and a number of others. And the ERLC took a position on that as well, something that it did not have any mandate from average Southern Baptists to take a position on. And so I think that in terms of why is the ERLC important to Southern Baptist leadership, I'm not sure, unless it's just this would be egg on our face to abolish this and it would be embarrassing. Because it seems to me that it is much more important, as we saw last night from all of that outrage, important to the secular left media. They are the ones who really care about having access to the ERLC, having representation in the ERLC, and ensuring that the ERLC is still a significant force for influencing the Christian landscape. So, that's all I can say is that it seems very obvious to me, regardless of what happened behind closed doors at the ERLC, the secular media cares very much about it.
So this is a question that I've been mulling around in my head. I'm trying to figure it out. Oh, I got three, but I'm going to try. Megan, I'll start with you, and Pastor Tom, I'll move to you. Why when you look at the ERLC and you look at the Southern Baptist Convention, the liberals who are trying to get in there and maneuver the Southern Baptist Convention, that has to mean that the Southern Baptist Convention has some massive power inside the political realm in America, right? Why does the ERLC keep churning out? If the convention is conservative, how does the ERLC keep churning out guys like Leatherwood and Russell Moore?
Is that question going to me or Tom? Sorry.
I'll go with you first, Megan.
So, that's a really good question. One is, I think we can talk about conquest law, or as I call it, O'Sullivan's law, which is that you have outside actors who are always going to be interested in seizing the reins of power in influential conservative organizations. And if they pose a problem to their agenda, they are always going to try to infiltrate and move those organizations. And I think that seems to be what we're seeing here. There's clearly no doubt that Brent Leatherwood has taken positions that many Southern Baptists disagree with, and those positions have trended to the progressive side, because no one was upset when the ERLC was issuing statements just to generally support life, or, when they have done things that Southern Baptists agree with, no one's upset. The controversy only comes here when they stake out progressive friendly positions on issues like gun control, the border, and things of that nature.
Pastor Thomas, let me just reframe it again for you, because I don't think I said it well the first time, but why is it that the ERLC keeps churning out guys like Russell Moore and Brentwood? This is amazing to me. I mean, after a while, I'm looking at the fruit of this tree and I'm saying, this fruit ain't good. Cursed be thou.
Well, yeah, but Richard Land was before Russell Moore, and he was kind of an anti-Russell Moore, the opposite. He was very conservative. Some would call him a fundamentalist. And he would not do the things that Russell came in and did. But Richard Land went out in an embarrassment because of some things he said about Trayvon Martin in the wake of his death. And so he kind of, with shame, went out. And I think there was a sense of guilt that got manipulated by from Southern Baptists and got manipulated by leftists. And when Russell Moore went in there, what was he a leftist before he got there or not? I don't know. I've known Russell for 25 or 30 years. And when he became the leader of the ERLC, I told him, I think God built you for this. I mean, I really thought he would do well. And if you go back and read stuff that Russell Moore wrote in 2006, 2007, 2008, you can hardly believe it. I mean, he was arguing for patriarchalism in our society back then. There's ETS articles that he wrote about that.
He was retweeting Pastor Wilson back then.
Yeah, right. I mean, so, I don't know what happened to Russ, but I do know that there are deep pockets involved. And again, Megan's book documents all of this. And somehow, somewhere, it seems like people got their hooks into him. And whether that was willingly or unwillingly, nevertheless, it happened. And in 2016, that was supposed to have been Hillary's coronation. I mean, she didn't even have to campaign, because she was just next in line. She was going to be given the crown and everybody else was going to be waiting in line behind her. And out of nowhere comes this guy that every leftist news outlet said, no way will he ever be president. And lo and behold, before the books got cooked, he was president.
Right.
And it's like, what happened? Well, all the post-mortem on the 2016 election began to come up with, look what evangelicals did. Look what the Southern Baptist Convention did. 80+% voted for Trump. How can that be? This is such a wicked man. And so you start having these operatives work very effectively to shave down that percentage. All they have to get is 5 or 6% off of that 82, 85%. And they put their person in the next time, which is exactly what happened. Now, there's probably more than that happened, but that's exactly what happened. Yeah. And so you had these evangelical leaders coming out strongly. You cannot be a consistent Christian and vote for Trump. And, we need to repent for casting a ballot for Trump and all of that stuff. Well, man, elections have consequences. And if you can make a couple of $100 million off of having the right guy put in office, you're strongly incentivized to do whatever you can to shave that 5 or 6% of the voting total away from the person you want in office. So I have zero doubt that type of formula is what we've been watching unfold here over the last 8 years.
Wow.
Tom, who replaces the executive chair now? How does that work?
Well,
how does it?
I think it's a whole board decision, but I'm not real sure. I haven't read the bylaws of the ERLC, but my guess is that would take a board vote at this point. Maybe the executive committee of the board could do it themselves, but I kind of doubt that.
Megan, you have this, brand new book coming out. Tom's mentioned it a couple times. Shepherds for Sale.
I want a signed copy.
How we all do. How evangelical leaders traded the truth for a leftist agenda. Is the ERLC in your book? And I mean,
yes,
that's the time. It's
Kamala Harris, the Democrat.
What is being bought and sold in the ERLC?
So yes, the ERLC looms large in the book, and there's a number of things that the ERLC has been involved with. For example, they have taken money from the Democracy Fund, which is, if you're not familiar, that was established by the left-wing Buddhist Pierre Omidyar, who founded eBay. So they've taken money from them to help address America's white supremacy problem. They took money from Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook Foundation in order to address some unspecified criminal justice reform project. They took money from the Fetzer Institute in order to study how evangelicals approach politics, which is interesting, right? Because it feels like they're taking money then from the Fetzer Institute to study the constituents they're supposed to be representing. So
I'm confused.
And all of these organizations have really atrocious stances on other issues. They're pro-abortion. They are pro-legalized prostitution. They are pro-transing kids. So really not the kind of partnerships that the righteous should be making with the unrighteous, and not in order to do things like, say, feed needy kids, but as I said, to do things like study how evangelicals think about democracy. So in a sense, you feel a little bit like the ERLC is using the Southern Baptist Convention as its research lab.
This is what's crazy. How are they taking? I'm sorry, Pastor, you were going to speak. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention also the Evangelical Immigration Table
Yes,
that
thank
has had a long relationship with ERLC.
Well, hold on. You said they're taking money from these groups, but aren't they supposed to be getting tithe money from the churches?
Well, look, you get multiple money from multiple sources. I don't think anybody says no to that, I guess.
I was told by a very good friend, fellow pastor, who had that kind of conversation with someone inside the ERLC a few years ago, saying, "Man, churches are going to cut you out. We're not going to keep paying you guys for your salaries." And the fellow just laughed at him and said, "Go ahead. It doesn't matter." So we've got plenty of money.
Whoa!
Now, he said that to a pastor to his face.
Wow! Wow!
Okay.
So they don't need the Southern Baptist Church's funds. They don't need SBC's funds, but they don't want to leave SBC either.
Well, of course not, because they steer SBC. I mean, what would the ERLC be by itself? Nothing. But if you're a part of the largest Protestant denomination in North America, then you're something. And if you're supposed to be the public voice in the cultural, political arena for that organization, then you are something. So absolutely, the connection is very important.
Boy, y'all are on fire right now. I don't want to hold you guys up because you guys taking time out your schedule, but I have a couple questions I think are important.
I got a couple.
Megan, I think one for you. We'll come to you in just a second, but I think the one for you is what was wrong with Brent Leatherwood's article that he wrote, right? I think that's important to deal with. But before we go to that one, so I'm going to let you kind of ponder that one because I'm sure you got plenty to say on it. Pastor Tom, I want you to take and put this all into context. Everything that's going on with the ERLC is not happening in this little context by itself. It's happening in the larger context of what's going on in America. We just saw Cheetos resign. We just saw assassination of our former president. We got Joe Biden stepping down, Kamala stepping in.
He's AWOL.
He's AWOL. So can you, and then the ERLC thing happens in the midst of all of that. I don't even know how to hold on to this whole narrative and put it together, but can you try and make sense of this for me?
Mm-hmm. Sure, I believe in the devil. The devil is a conspirator.
That's it.
And demons are real. And yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, you just look, and the Bible tells us this. The Bible's crystal clear about this, and the power of the devil is often underestimated by us in our secular age today. So even talk about these realities, people will think you're loony. But the fact is, if there is no devil, or like what J.I. Packer said one time, if there's no devil, then who is running his business? Because his business is thriving. And we see that happening all across the landscape. I mean, it's not an accident that we have renowned surgeons in teaching hospitals that are doing things with their scalpels, which if they were done 75 years ago, those people would have been arrested and put away for the rest of their lives, if not executed. And yet now it's being done in the name of professionalism and progressivism and how enlightened we are. There's a devil, and he hates God. He hates God's people. He hates the Lord Jesus Christ. He wants to destroy people. And if there were no devil, could you come up with a better play than what we have seen the last many years to accomplish what the Bible tells us is his stated goal to steal, kill, and destroy? Well, I don't think you could, because he's done a pretty good job, and God's people have been asleep. And we have the Word, we have the Spirit, we have the gospel, and yet we have been too often intimidated into staying in our little corners because you said, well, look, that's politics, or that's cultural, and you don't want to give up the gospel, and you don't want to be a political hack. And it's like we've forgotten that Jesus Christ is Lord over every sphere of the world. He created it, belongs to him, and we're to represent him and speak for him in every sphere of this world.
Tom, we'll get to you and Megan in just a second, but Tom, you are a legacy pastor in the SBC. You've been around for...
Is that just a fancy way of saying old?
Yeah, you are. Well,
I didn't say that, Pastor. I didn't. I stand with you.
My question. I mean, you've got so much wisdom, and you've been around the institutions and organizations for a long time.
Fact, they scared of Tom.
Yeah, they scared of Tom. I mean,
yeah.
I think of Tom as the godfather of the SBC.
No, for real. Knowing what you know now, how would you enter into ministry knowing what you know now after all these years of being in the SBC?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've not pondered that. My aspirations have always been to pastor a local church and to give my life to that. And by God's grace, He's enabled me to do it. I'm in my 39th year at this church here in Southwest Florida.
Wonderful.
And, praise God. I'm just amazed, that God has allowed me to do this, see this. And we are Southern Baptist, but my identity has not been, hey, we're a Southern Baptist church, I'm a Southern Baptist pastor. I mean, we associate with the SBC and are glad to do so. I think if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have worked harder and more shrewdly to try to be involved in SBC life. And, I just trusted people that were far better than me, more capable than me to do those things. And we saw some really good things going on up until about 10 or 12 years ago. And as I began to hear stuff, I thought, no, it can't be that bad. If it's that bad, this guy would be dealing with it. That guy would be dealing with it because they're trustworthy. They're in positions of leadership. They know what's going on. I got a church to pastor. And it wasn't until back in 2016, actually, or 17, that I got confronted with reality that I could not close my eyes to. And I remember specifically where I was. I had a phone conversation with one well-known SBC leader and was raising concerns that I thought he should be addressing. And when I hung up, I looked at the associate across the room from me, and I said, we're in trouble. I said, he's not going to help us. And so it was at that point that I just started going to school and trying to learn what I could and do what I could. So I think, if I knew then what I know now, then I would certainly try to prepare better back then to be better equipped now, because I'm playing catch up, and I will be playing catch up until I die, trying to get my mind wrapped around on some of these movements and issues and how they have taken root among us.
One of the things I've appreciated about you is that as you've gotten older, usually I see a lot of pastors, retreat, but as you've gotten older, you've engaged more. And
his beard has grown out more too.
His beard has grown.
It's
I mean, I don't
just
think he had a beard when we first met. But
he's in war mode, man.
And there's more dead animals behind him now than there was before.
That's true. Alligators all over the place. And there's a real. And I think that's a real shame that a lot of pastors, when they get older, they kind of retreat into the background or start maybe heading some sort of way into retirement in a way where they're not passing down wisdom and they're not passing down what the depth of what God has given them, for 39 years.
Amen.
And then the next generation of pastors are like, kind of having to relearn things all over again that they shouldn't have to learn because they didn't learn from guys like you. So I appreciate you leaning into the fight as you've gotten older.
Pastor Tom, if you have to run, do your thing. We appreciate you. Thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, well, appreciate y'all very much too, and for what you're doing. God bless you.
Keep fighting, brother.
Thank you, Tom. I know you asked Megan a question. I just want to point out. I think one thought that at the end of Joshua, when the tribes settle the land. There's this scene where you have these two tribes on the other side of the Jordan, and you got the other 10 tribes, and the two tribes on the other side of the Jordan build this monument.
Yep.
And the other 10 tribes, led by Phineas, get wind of the monument and think it's an altar to another god. And they get their troops together, their soldiers together, and they go marching down on them. Yeah. And right at the last minute, the other two tribes come running out with their white flag and they're saying, hey, it's not an altar to a false god.
Yep.
It's just a reminder that we're part of the team. We're part of Israel. And Phineas and the other troops are like, oh, okay.
All right, just making sure.
And they go home. Yeah. But I was thinking about that as Tom was talking about, and I think this applies across the board. Yeah. This applies in your local church. This applies in the SBC. This applies in the PCA. This applies in my denomination, the CREC. But I think we need to have the zeal of Phineas.
Yes.
That's right. That's easily entreatable.
Yeah.
So
that's good, Toby.
if it's not a false god, if it's not an altar to whatever the latest pagan god is, then okay, preach out. Never mind.
Yeah.
But until I know that, I'm bringing the troops.
Yeah,
that's right.
That kind of zeal is really important. I think for the point that Megan was making earlier about now I forgot it. She called it the O'Sullivan's Law, I think. But if you're not constantly going conservative, you're going liberal.
Well, that might also be an argument for government is guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah, right. But again, that goes for all governments.
Yeah.
So
that's suspicion.
I mean, you need to hold your church government accountable. You hold your civil government accountable. You've got to verify. Kind of like Cheadle didn't do with that sloped roof.
Megan, okay. So
you asked her a question.
Yeah, the question was
15 minutes.
What was wrong with Leatherwood's article? Because he made a statement that what's wrong with just saying, hey, this was a great decision for our country. I'm not, it's not bad to say, right?
Okay, well, one, I would argue that it was not such a great decision because if we look at Joe Biden announcing that he is withdrawing from the race, there's really only two reasons that the Democrat Party has given us for why he would make that decision. One is that he is now suffering from dementia to such a degree that he cannot carry on a campaign. Well, if you're going to resign from the campaign and not the presidency, then you have just signaled to America's enemies all over the world that we have a commander in chief who is not up to doing the job right now. And what Brett Leatherwood did was congratulate the president on his selflessness in choosing to leave the campaign trail, but he did not say anything about his lack of selflessness in continuing to occupy the Oval Office. So that's one issue with it, if that is the real case and not the polls. Now, on the other issue, you have the polls that were showing that Joe Biden simply could not beat Donald Trump. And in that case, you have a Brent Leatherwood stepping forward and praising President Biden for a Democratic electoral strategy. So he's commenting on party politics on behalf of Democrats and is echoing the Democratic Party line, because let's be clear, whether it was the big donors, whether it was Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, all of the media from the New York Times on down, they have all been using this exact same talking point.
That's right.
That what Joe Biden did here, yes, was make a selfless decision when in fact, one, it's dishonest because it's very clear that he was pushed out. He did not want to go. And then, second of all, once he made that decision, they disenfranchised 14 million Democratic primary voters. So they are running roughshod over our electoral process. So there are a whole lot of reasons that it was a really bad statement to make. And that doesn't even begin to get into the article that Brent Leatherwood wrote that also had some issues.
Whoa.
That was just a tweet.
That was just, yeah.
That was just the tweet. Yeah.
So are Christians listening to you? Because I saw that on X, it made me so mad. Somebody's like, oh, she's stirring up lies and twisting stuff. And I'm like, one thing.
They never say what they are, though, do they?
No. But Megan, I've known you just a couple years, and I know one thing about you. You can say whatever they want, but they can't say you a liar. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Like you
got
bring
receipts.
you got your receipts. Like, and when I see stuff like that, I'm like, wow, they just want to discredit her. And I saw that you went on to Ben Shapiro. Did you already do that? Are you going to be doing that?
No, we're doing that next week.
Okay. So, but is anybody else inside the Christendom world listening to the conversations that you're having, or is it the conservative Christians outside of the SBC world?
So I think two things are happening. One is that conservatives were very late to understand the importance of evangelicals. I think they're, to a certain extent, and we saw this at the RNC last week, have taken the evangelical vote for granted. They just assume that we have an ironclad influence over these people. And I think that's a mistake for a lot of reasons. And so for that reason, I think conservatives and conservative media have not really been that interested in what evangelicals are up to. At the same time that the secular left media has been extremely interested in what evangelicals are up to. You see constant coverage in the New York Times, Washington Post, Atlantic. You see their authors, their reporters authoring all kinds of books about evangelicals. So really attempting to move evangelicals politically. And I think that conservatives are a little late to understanding the importance of that. But I think that's changing. There is some analysis that shows that just enough votes in swings, the evangelical votes in swing states in 2020 helped swing that election to Joe Biden. That if they had not lost 4 or 5 million of those evangelical votes in crucial states, that we might not be in the situation that we're in today. So I think for that reason, they're starting to pay attention, but it's been a long, slow process of education, of trying to explain to people why they care. And as to your question on the SBC, I think, quite frankly, the SBC leadership, not the rank and file, cares a lot less what people who listen to the Daily Wire or who listen to other conservative media think about them than they care what the New York Times thinks about them. They are clearly extremely steerable by secular media, and that is why the secular media continues to do it. Because, that was very bizarre. Let's be real. What on earth does Nicholas Kristof at the New York Times care about Brent Leatherwood in the ERLC?
That's right.
He did that because Russell Moore signaled that this is important and you need to make a fuss.
What do you think? I asked Tom this question earlier. What do you think are the backroom conversations that were had? Because you had the executive committee fire Brent, and then within 24 hours, Brent was not fired anymore. In fact, it was just one big mistake. And so the executive committee chair steps down. Like, what backroom conversations were having? Who was pressuring who? Was Al Mohler involved? Everything. I want to hear it all.
He didn't say it was a mistake. Let's be careful about what his statement said. His statement was that he had informal consensus, so that he had spoken to the other board members. He believed that they had consensus on this decision, though they hadn't taken a formal vote. But he obviously believed he had support to take this action and stepped forward. It wasn't until after there was massive media outcry that suddenly that consensus evaporated. Where did it go? So, I've told you what a couple of people are telling me. I'm still pursuing this story myself, but it seems very clear to me that Kevin Smith, the board chair, would not have taken this action if he did not believe that he had the rest of his board members behind him, because I don't believe the guy is professionally suicidal. That's silly.
Yeah.
So we have to ask what else was going on. And, it pushes the bounds of credibility to me to suggest that those board members and the SBC generally, which has always showed itself to be highly influenceable. I don't know if that's a word, but highly easily.
I used it this week. Yes.
I'm coining a word. That they are very easy for the mainstream media to influence, and that they do not like the media spotlight shining on them in a negative way. And it's very interesting to me to draw a contrast between how the SBC handled this situation and the ERLC board in particular, and how the PCA handled removing David French from that panel back in June, where they also felt the full brunt of the media's ire for that decision in a very similar way to what we just saw with Brent Leatherwood. And the PCA, to their credit, went, yeah, we don't really care. This is our church business meeting, and you do not have a say here. And that is not what the ERLC has done.
Wow.
Okay.
I just want to read what Russell Moore said: shameful and disgraceful about Brent Leatherwood's being fired. Yeah. A great Christian man who lived through his children barely surviving a school shooting. Southern Baptist, how much more of this are you going to let go on? You cannot pretend to not see what is happening in your name. It's just interesting. I mean, the appeal is one of emotion, manipulation, and feeling bad. Not a question of fittedness, not a question of action, ethics. The ERLC seems to care about. Megan, really appreciate you and your time with us today.
Shepherds for hire.
Everybody go buy
Shepherds for sale.
For sale.
Come on, Gabe.
Wow, Gabe.
It's
we're sorry. You know what? This is why Megan, I got you. This is why you don't see our JL award in her back, because you don't get the names of her book titles right. We should see the JL award in the back of
I just want to remind everybody.
It is. Okay, wait.
Oh,
there it is.
Look at that.
It is, right there.
There we go.
There we go. There's the JL
Megan,
award.
thank you very much. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, keep smashing those heads. Appreciate you very much. I just want to remind everybody before we go, the conference this year, Prodigal America in Fort Worth, Texas. Will America return to the Father in repentance, or will we go to our own destruction and become a pillar of salt as a memorial for other nations? Join us October 31st to November 2nd. George Grant's going to be there. James White's going to be there.
Steve Dace, Pastor Wilson.
Steve Dace.
Come on.
We're going to do a live show. Dusty Devers is going to be there. ProdigalAmerica.com. Get your tickets today. We'll see you in Fort Worth, Texas. Fight, Laugh, Feast this fall.
He's back in the fight. Kevin Smith, he had to go.
Kevin Smith
resigned his post. Can't handle the show.
He resigned his post.
Where's our stability?
If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. If you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast.
That's amazing.
This is CrossPolitic.
Home. It's where you build your legacy, where traditions are started, seeds are planted, meals are shared, and stories are told. We are Chris and Natalie Carpenter, owners of Story Real Estate, and our team of top agents helps people find homes in Moscow, Idaho, and around the country.
Have you thought about a move? Contact us to get connected with a top agent who shares your values and puts your family first. Or reach out to us about our Moscow relocation guide.
Wherever you're looking to go, we can help you find home. Call us at Story Real Estate or visit us at storyrealestate.com and start building your legacy.